We begin with developing news from Etobicoke. 3 people have been taken to hospital following a crash involving a Toronto police vehicle. This happened shortly after 10 a.m. in the area of Albion Road and Kipling Avenue. A 19-year-old man has been taken to hospital with serious injuries, while a 16-year-old girl and a police officer were both taken to hospital with minor injuries. You're looking at a live shot at the intersection this hour, a big disruption. The cause of this crash is still under investigation. It's the early stages at this point. We will continue to follow this developing story. Meanwhile, an investigation is underway following the death of an OPP officer in a crash on the 401 in Cobourg.
Now, condolences are pouring in from the policing community and local officials for the friends and family of Sergeant Brandon Malcolm. CTV Sean Leathong has been following this story and joins us live from Cobourg with more. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, Sergeant Malcolm was stationed here at the Northumberland detachment for the past 6 years, since 2020. But we do know that he died yesterday on the 401, not far from where we're standing for much of the day. We know the crash happened at around 5:30 yesterday afternoon as OPP were called to a single vehicle collision. Now, Sergeant Malcolm drove a motorcycle. We know he was a member of the Golden Helmets Precision Motorcycle Squad for the OPP. Once the OPP were detached to the area of the 401 between Burnham Street and Country Road 28, the officer was pronounced dead at the scene. As I mentioned, he had been part of this detachment for the past 6 years. We know he was also a previous member of the armed forces and had been an auxiliary officer with Toronto Police for just over 6 years. Now, you mentioned that the outpouring of support was coming in. We have heard from the president of the Ontario Provincial Police Association and the commissioner of the OPP. They spoke a little while ago. Here's what both of them had to say.
His career goal was to become a police officer. He had been an auxiliary member with Toronto Police, a member of the Canadian Armed Forces, and in 2020 he joined the Ontario Provincial Police. He was living his best life as a police officer, a very proud member of our Golden Helmets, the Precision Motorcycle Team, a skilled motor officer, and doing an incredible job serving this province and dedicated to his community.
It's a devastating loss for our family. The Ontario Provincial Police is a close-knit group of members across the province, and local here in Northumberland, they're feeling this devastating loss.
Now, some mental health resources have been made available to members. We've seen that tight-knit community in action just moments ago. There were some members showing up and dropping off food for anybody who may be inside here, obviously grieving. When it comes to the crash, we do know an investigation is underway, but there aren't many details beyond that, just that it was a single vehicle collision and that Sergeant Brendan Malcolm was killed. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Nathan, Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. And Premier Doug Ford released a statement immediately following the collision yesterday. He wrote, "I am very sad to hear that an Ontario provincial police officer was killed in the line of duty in Cobourg earlier today. My thoughts are with the officer's family and loved ones, as well as all of our brave women and men in uniform across the province who risk their lives every day to protect Ontario." In other news, a man in his 50s is fighting for his life in hospital after being struck by a vehicle in Etobicoke. This happened shortly before 8 this morning near Dundas Street in Islington. Police say the driver involved remained at the scene. The circumstances leading up to the pedestrian being struck are under investigation.
A tow truck fire in Brampton overnight is being investigated as a case of possible arson. Cell phone video shows the truck engulfed in flames in the driveway of a home near Dixie and Steeles. Firefighters arrived on scene around 3 in the morning. The Ontario Fire Marshal's office has taken over the investigation, and so far, police have not provided any information on possible suspects or whether this may be linked to 3 similar incidents in Brampton last week.
A fire at a nightclub on Polson Pier is being investigated as a possible arson, with the CEO of Inc. Entertainment saying the venue has video footage of a small group of people setting fires.
Yeah, we're just standing on the edge of Cabana, and we had a couple of guys that we have footage of came and torched the place in 3 different areas, quite a bit of damage. So it is arson. It's been documented, and we've had everybody here this morning already to try and start rebuilding again for our opening May 31st, which we will be able to. But definitely arson, 100%.
Firefighters and water lines from a fireboat were deployed to the scene early this morning. Toronto Fire says the flames were contained to the exterior of the building. No injuries have been reported in this case, and the investigation continues.
The suspect in a deadly shooting at a college bar in southwestern Ontario has been arrested after spending more than 2 weeks on the run. Sarnia police were called to the Lambton College campus around 1 in the morning on April 10th for reports of a shooting. 20-year-old Dane Nesbitt died in hospital as a result of gunshot wounds, while 2 other people were injured. 24-year-old Kya Chin Do was arrested yesterday at a home in London and is facing charges including second-degree murder and attempted murder. 2 19-year-olds are also facing gun-related charges and accessory to murder after the fact in connection with the shooting.
Still to come, the federal government is set to provide its spring economic update this afternoon. We'll have a preview a little later in the newscast.
Opposition MPPs and advocacy groups are speaking out about the Ford government's plan to dramatically expand Billy Bishop Airport, including the addition of jets.
Billy Bishop is just too small. It's only 200 acres. The next smallest airport in North America that has jets is 600 acres, and that's San Diego. It's too crowded. Doug Ford wants to bring in another 8 million passengers to the downtown core, to Billy Bishop, not to visit the downtown core, but to actually fly out. And so the traffic, in one of the reports, it talks about with half of that, the estimate for the environmental assessment, they were working with 5 million passengers a year, and they said this would cause a 450% increase in downtown traffic.
One is by Oliver Wyman, which is Air Canada's consultants, and they said, among other things, that you would have to have runway approach lighting for about 700 meters at the end of the runway. That's in addition to the 900 meters that's mentioned in the Globe and Mail today. In other words, the runway would come out a bunch of distance, and then you would have the runway approach lighting.
The province is pushing to take over the city's role in managing Billy Bishop Airport as part of its push for expansion. That's led to pushback from the mayor and members of city council who've expressed concern over the potential impact on the waterfront.
The Raptors are preparing for Game 5 of their first-round playoff series with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
The series is currently tied at 2 games apiece, but the Raptors will be heading back to enemy territory for Game 5. CTV's Allison Hurst has more.
Lots of excitement as the Raptors head to Cleveland for Game 5, having evened out this series in the last 2 games at home. And of course, everybody talks about how a series is not lost until the home team loses a home game. And so lots of excitement as they head into Game 5 in Cleveland. Analysts have been talking about the real shift, that the pressure is now on Cleveland to pull it out, that they've got the star power and they're the ones now heading back to their home court, and they are the ones who have the pressure on them. Well, the Raptors have done what they needed to do here in Toronto in front of their hometown fans. We heard from the players how excited they were to be in front of Toronto fans. We heard how loud it was in Scotiabank for Games 3 and 4. Even RJ Barrett talking about how excited he was to be playing in front of his hometown crowd over these games. He also, though, did talk about how he likes to play the villain, and that home court advantage doesn't really impact him all that much. And so he is now going to get that opportunity in Game 5 with the rest of his team and his squad to head over there and play that villain card and hopefully continue and bring the momentum from these last 2 games with them. Perhaps not the prettiest game in Game 4, a little bit of a muck it out, but they pulled off the win, and that is really what matters in this 7-game series. Here's a little bit more from one analyst.
This is a team that is learning on the fly. They're learning really quick, but we're seeing the progression. We've seen it. Game 3, they won, but they won shooting a ton, which is not how you typically expect this Raptors team to win a basketball game. That ugly game in Game 4, to me, shows that this is a team that's learned how to muck it up. James Harden had 15 turnovers in 2 games in Toronto, which proves that the Raptors know how to get in there and how to muck it up.
Game 5 gets underway tomorrow night at 7:30. I'm Allison Hurst reporting from OVO.
All right, we got more news in a moment, but first to look at the forecast. There's a lot of look at the city. We've got a few clouds and also some rain in some areas off and on. Not quite what we had yesterday, but I'm sure eventually things are going to get better. Lindsay Morrison has a look at the current conditions. Hey, Lindsay.
Hey, Nathan. Yeah, it was a pretty soggy start to the day, depending on where you're joining us from in the GTA. The time may have varied. We saw in Sean's report not long ago from the Cobourg area that rain is still coming down. We've got showers, though, across the GTA, and we will hold on to the chance of showers and the risk of a thunderstorm for this afternoon, although the heaviest rain has now pushed east. We're at 12 degrees this hour at Pearson Airport, forecasting a daytime high of 18 today. Winds right now coming out of the south. We're going to see the winds gradually change direction through the day today and into the night tonight. And when that happens tonight, that's going to cool us down for the day tomorrow. But again, we hang on to the warmth for this afternoon. 18 degrees is above seasonal, but you can expect going forward for the rest of the week, we are going to be below the seasonal average. We'll talk about the chilly end to April and start of May coming up. For now, though, Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Jewish advocacy group B'nai B'rith says anti-Semitic incidents in Canada hit another record high last year.
The sustained year-over-year increase in incidents of anti-Jewish hate make it clear that, when it comes to anti-Semitism, we have become a nation that tolerates disgraceful levels of hate.
A report from the group says there were 6,800 incidents recorded across the country last year, and that's up from 6,200 in 2024. They included incidents of violence, harassment, and vandalism. The organization says Ontario and British Columbia saw increases in anti-Semitic incidents, while Quebec and Alberta saw declines.
King Charles is set to become only the second British monarch to address U.S. Congress today as he continues an official visit to America to mark the 250th anniversary of the country's independence from Britain. The visit by the King and Queen Camilla comes as relations between the two countries are tense. Trump, who hosted the royal family at the White House for tea yesterday, has frequently criticized the United Kingdom and Prime Minister Keir Starmer for not joining the U.S. and Israel in their war with Iran. Security is extremely tight during the King's four-day visit, taking place in the wake of the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. CTV's Scott Hurst has been following the King's visit to the U.S. He joins us live with more. Scott, certainly the U.S. and U.K. relations under strain right now.
Michelle, good afternoon. It has been a warm welcome for King Charles and Queen Camilla, despite the strain that you talk about between U.S. President Donald Trump and U.K. Prime Minister Keir Starmer. And we've already seen a lot of pomp and pageantry. The King and Queen arriving last night, but now this morning having the official welcome to the White House, where Donald Trump in his opening remarks paid tribute to the long and shared history between the British and U.S. relationship. And he did also talk about the personal affection his family has for the royal family, even talking about how his mother would always stop and have to watch the Queen anytime she was on TV. And as you mentioned, the Queen, the only British monarch to address U.S. Congress back in 1991. Now her son, King Charles, will share in that history, delivering a rare message to a joint meeting of Congress later this afternoon, about 3 o'clock our time, in front of the joint session of Congress, where he's expected to talk about the stabilization and kind of shoring up this sour relationship. Comes at a time of increased tension, as you mentioned, between the U.S. president and the British prime minister, where the president has been quite critical of Keir Starmer for not doing more to support the U.S. with the war in Iran. And so this is part of an invitation to help celebrate America and the 250th anniversary, but also at a time where the King could really try to shore up the relationship between the two countries, Michelle.
Well, Canada and the monarchy have deep ties. Is the King perhaps expected to discuss the ongoing trade war between us and the U.S.?
It's unlikely that the King will have anything specific or public about the relationship between Canada and the U.S. right now, but it comes at an important time in Canada-U.S. relationships. This trip really is hyper-focused on trying to reset the relationship between the U.S. and the U.K., but there's no better advocate for Canada than the King. Of course, he is our King as well, and really a defender of our sovereignty, and we heard that last year at a time where there were so many comments about Canada from Donald Trump about about the 51st state, and the king was invited to deliver the speech from the throne and had strong statements about Canada and its sovereignty. One particular line that stands out, saying the true north is indeed strong and free, reaffirming Canada's strength and standing on the world stage. So, of course, the king is a strong advocate for Canada and a defender of our sovereignty. If there is anyone that could potentially get through to the U.S. president on a personal or a private letter or on a private function, it is likely to be the king because of the deep respect and affection that the U.S. president does have. But don't expect anything public to come out of the meeting between the king and the U.S. president about Canada-U.S. relationships.
It does make you wonder what will be said behind closed doors. CTV Scott Hurst live for us in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
The federal government is set to table its spring economic update today, with Prime Minister Mark Carney hinting at a rosier bottom line and smaller than expected deficits. Carney's November budget projected a $78.3 billion deficit for 2025-2026. However, new Finance Department numbers show the government ran a $25.5 billion deficit from April of 2025 to February of 2026. The update will come after the Prime Minister unveiled plans for Canada's first National Sovereign Wealth Fund yesterday. And CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver joins us now live from Ottawa with more. So, Annie, what are we expecting to hear about this fiscal update?
Hi, Nathan. Well, you mentioned this Canada Strong Sovereign Wealth Fund. We are expected to hear more details about that fund. The Prime Minister announced it yesterday, saying that the government will put in an initial $25 billion to get the fund going, and that it would be a Crown corporation that would independently run and manage the fund. So we are expecting to hear more details about what this fund will really entail. A lot of other sovereign wealth funds use the revenue from oil and gas, take a little bit of that revenue, put it into the sovereign wealth fund, and that's one of the ways it grows. The Prime Minister wouldn't say if that's the way that this Canada Strong Fund will operate. So a lot of people are going to be looking to today's economic update to see whether that will be included and what other details there are in there about the Canada Strong Fund. But I think overall, the big takeaway from today and the big headline that you're going to see after 4 o'clock when the embargo lifts is what is the deficit. As you pointed out, last budget, which was Carney's first, estimated the deficit at about $78 billion for last fiscal year. You also pointed out that recent numbers from the Finance Department are showing that the deficit does tend to be or is projected to be tens of billions of dollars less. And private sector economists are saying the same thing, Nathan. They're saying that because of very high oil prices, which are really hurting consumers at the pumps and elsewhere, that's bringing in a lot more federal revenue, and that will help bring down the deficit. So the big question is, where exactly will this deficit land? What does it look like over the next few years? And is there any projection to get this budget back to balance? And how soon will that deficit be at zero, if at all, Nathan?
And also, the Prime Minister's strategy has to become less reliant on the U.S. when it comes to trade. How might that factor into today's update?
Well, this seems to have really been factoring into almost every decision that the Prime Minister has made over the last year. We even talked about this Sovereign Wealth Fund yesterday. This is, key to that messaging of diversifying away from the United States and really focusing on growing the Canadian economy and investing in Canada to help ensure that infrastructure projects get built, to create jobs, and to help improve the domestic production of the economy and to help improve the economy. So, I think it's fair to expect to see a lot of language in this economic update about making the economy more resilient to shocks, which includes trade policy in the United States, investing in Canadian industries. We're expecting to see something perhaps about skilled trade workers, so improving, putting money towards that to get more workers to help get some of these major projects done. The other area we're looking here is at defense. A lot of economists are hoping to see more information about how the government intends to reach 5% of GDP by 2035. This is a big goal for the federal government. And up until now, we haven't really had much of a breakdown about how the government intends to be spending this money and how much money it's going to be spending. The government has signaled, Carney himself, that he no longer wants to spend a majority of Canada's defense budget in the United States, and that he wants to shift that, focusing more at home in Canada. That raises the question about, will there be incentives in here to spend defense money in Canada? Will there be other incentives that help local defense companies to be more competitive in these big contracts? That's a big question here. You know, there's also a lot of money that needs to be spent when it comes to submarine and F-35s. And some of those major contracts may not go to the United States. There are other competitors, South Korea, for example, if we talk about the submarines. So maybe there's some movement there. But overall, again, just look for the wording when it comes to strengthening the economy and investments that are really helping the domestic production in Canada, potentially even helping industries that have been really hurt by the U.S. tariff. So for sure, this will play out throughout the economic update today, Nathan.
All right, CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver in Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you.
The cost of raising cattle is going up, along with the price of beef at the grocery store.
However, some in the agriculture industry are feeling optimistic as China is once again accepting Canadian beef. CTV's Tyson Fedor has the story.
If you go to the grocery store and are shopping for beef, you will have noticed the soaring price, 14% in the last year, according to Statistics Canada.
The whole world that can afford it seems to really enjoy beef.
Demand remains, but it comes as livestock prices are up. What was a $1,500 cow now sees Leathong selling it for more than double.
Every month we wish we would have bought more last month because it's higher. It feels like runaway inflation today.
But Colk says the cost of doing business is way up, paying more for feed and for hay. Futures Market says cattle prices are up 6% in the last month, 20% compared to last year.
The cattle business is not jump in for 6 months and get out and wait till it gets better and then jump back in. You're in it for the long haul.
Calgary's business community hosted the province's ag sector Monday. Many feel there is a level of optimism within the sector that has not been felt in some time.
The fact that China has lifted its ban on Canadian beef being imported into the country, fantastic. So that really is a great opportunity for us as well. And certainly we know that we have what the world needs: food, fuel, fertilizer.
But getting beef, grains, or fertilizer to other markets, including Asia, has been difficult due to high shipping costs.
It's great to make the statement that we want to double our agricultural industry, but when our rail's already 100% utilized, how are we going to get that doubling of that to market?
Despite the optimism for some, others in the industry say global volatility has challenged the sector like never before.
Just in recent years, we endured those droughts, COVID, policy issues out east, multiple supply chain collapses, and even last year's Liberation Day. But what we've encountered over the past several weeks has impacted global agriculture like very few events in history. It could literally take years for us to regain equilibrium.
Tyson Fedor, CTV News, Calgary.
A man accused of plotting to attack one of Taylor Swift's concerts in Vienna nearly 2 years ago has pleaded guilty as his trial began today. The plan was thwarted, but Austrian authorities still canceled Swift's 3 planned shows in August of 2024. The defendant faced several charges, including terror offenses and membership in a terrorist organization. His defense attorney says he pleaded guilty because he regrets the plan.
Donald Trump says Iran has informed him the Islamic Republic is in a state of collapse and is figuring out its leadership situation. The U.S. president insists Tehran also wants the Americans to open the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. It is not clear how Iran might have communicated that message. Trump has not been receptive to Tehran's recent peace proposal. It would see discussion of its nuclear program set aside until the war ends. But Trump wants that issue dealt with on day one. He scrapped a visit by U.S. negotiators to mediator Pakistan last weekend.
The United Arab Emirates says it will pull out of the oil exporting group OPEC and the wider OPEC Plus effective May 1st. The move by the world's 8th largest oil producer has been rumored recently as the UAE pushed back against production restrictions and had increasingly frosty relations with neighboring Saudi Arabia, OPEC's de facto leader. In a statement, the UAE said the decision reflects its long-term strategic and economic vision and its evolving energy profile. OPEC has seen its power wane in recent years as the United States increased its crude oil production. And the war in the Middle East continues to impact prices at the pump, but it's also affecting companies that make personal protective equipment.
That includes things like medical gloves. As CTV's John Valley-Rao tells us, the companies are warning about supply challenges and soaring costs.
In a warehouse in Vaughan, Ontario.
All these have been really affected from the raw material shortage.
Daniel Pecchioli showed us the many boxes of disposable gloves his company gets manufactured in places like China.
Ronco, hand, head, and body protection solutions
A family-run business, Ronco makes all sorts of personal protective gear, from lab coats and hair coverings to eyewear. And they're feeling the pinch from the conflict in Iran and global energy shock, because a lot of the raw materials that go into their items are a byproduct of oil and natural gas, which are in short supply in Asia.
It's impacting the cost of manufacture because the products that we use, which is a byproduct of oil, that cost has risen.
In particular, he says the cost to make disposable nitrile gloves used in hospitals for food prep or handling chemicals has gone up dramatically.
These type of gloves, they're going to be at an 80% increased price for the retail market in the next 2-3 months.
He says for some items, manufacturing costs are up 20 to 80% or more.
Latest I heard is some people have said up to 100%.
While Ronco has had to raise some prices, they say they haven't yet passed on the full cost to their customers. In Asia, which accounts for more than half of the world's manufacturing, the shortage in petrochemicals has made it harder to make plastics and synthetic materials like polyester, which go into thousands of consumer products.
The longer the conflict continues, the greater chance that we're going to start to see shortages and or inflation on some of these items.
Pecchioli expects these disposable gloves will soon be in short supply for retail.
It's going to happen May, June, and that's when there's going to be a shortage in the Canadian market for these.
Meanwhile, experts say even after the Strait of Hormuz reopens, it'll take months for the cost of some manufactured goods to stop their upward climb. John Benavalli-Rouse, CTV News, Vaughan, Ontario.
Well, after a beautiful sunny day yesterday, we have found ourselves in a much more unsettled weather pattern for today and for tomorrow. So plan on keeping that umbrella handy. Rounds of rain expected into tomorrow, beginning around the noon hour. Let's talk about this evening. Hanging on to the chance of showers and a risk of a thunderstorm, but overall drier compared to the morning. We skip ahead to tomorrow night, and while it's not a home game, you better believe Jurassic Park is going to be packed with fans cheering on the Raptors. You can expect a somewhat chilly temperature of 9 degrees at tip-off, with that chance of showers there as well. Stay with us. We're going to take a look at your 7-day forecast and talk about your weekend weather after the break.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Well, after a glorious Monday, we are into an unsettled stretch, perhaps even stormy on this Tuesday.
Right. So anything can happen, but at least we're, in the double digits. That's one decent thing.
Yeah, at least for today. Things are going to change as we make our way through the rest of the week. So I don't like to focus on, negative. I'm a glass half full kind of gal. But as we make our way through the next couple of days, we're looking at more in the way of wet weather, and we are expecting some cooler temperatures as we finish off this month of April. Wait until you see the overnight low as we officially head into May. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. More on local thunderstorms in just a moment, but first I want to take you to Michigan. This is where some pretty powerful storms rolled through last evening, and as you can see, the winds were strong enough to uproot major large trees, caused plenty of damage as well. At one point, more than 70,000 people were without electricity in the state. And yes, this is the same disturbance, the same low pressure system that ended up influencing our weather heading into today with all that rain. And these numbers, this is not including the rainfall that we've seen so far today. So as of yesterday, more than 110 millimeters of rainfall in the month of April. That is well above average. And of course, this on the heels of what was a very rainy March as well. So this spring, yeah, it's been something else, hasn't it? And we're not through with the wet weather. We're still seeing some spotty showers around the GTA. A couple of showers have developed to our west as well. So we're going to keep an eye on that as we make our way through the afternoon. Seeing less likelihood of thunderstorms developing through the afternoon, but the chance is there. And then we're going to dry out somewhat for this evening. Next disturbance moves in for tomorrow. This one's not going to impact our morning drive quite the same way. It's going to arrive a little bit later in the day. So just wanted to pause this around 4 p.m. today to show you the possibility of some pop-up showers or storms, but it's not looking too bad right now. There's about noon tomorrow. So we're back into some showers, and it's not just for the noon hour. Into the evening dinner hour, likely still dealing with some scattered wet weather. Heading into the day on Thursday, drier, a little more in the way of sun, but not completely in the clear. As you can see, some areas are still going to see a few showers, including us, perhaps before the afternoon is finished, heading into the evening hours. So as far as rainfall is concerned, anticipating another 10 to 15 millimeters over the next 2 days here, depending on where you're joining us from. So again, not including today's rainfall, you can expect that April total to go right up. Speaking of up, temperature is on the rise in Windsor. It is 12 degrees right now in Toronto, 20 though in Windsor. 7 degrees is what we're forecasting for a low tonight in the city. And then tomorrow, this is a little bit cooler. We're going to have a northwest wind this time, along with the showers. So 11 degrees, still in the double digits. There is that, but not as comfortable as yesterday or today. Some communities are going to be close to single-digit territory. If not tomorrow, then certainly as we make our way into Thursday and Friday. But at least the sun should be back out for those days. We do hang on to that chance of showers, as mentioned. Overnight lows near freezing. Friday morning, Saturday morning. The first weekend of May is looking a little chilly. Keep in mind our average daytime high this time of year is about 15 or 16 degrees. So this is cooler than what we expect at this time of year. That's the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Oh, come on now. Thank you, Lindsay. Well, the PWHL is drawing more fans. The league says more than 1.1 million fans attended 120 games this year. That's an average of 9,300 per game, up nearly 30% compared to last season, including the playoffs. It's also up 71% compared to the league's inaugural season. In-arena sales of merchandise also doubled this year, with online sales up 50% compared to 2025. Meanwhile, YouTube viewership increased 77% this season, with people tuning in from 154 different countries.
The Blue Jays will be looking to get back into the win column as they continue their series with the Red Sox tonight.
And that's going to do it. Jesus Sanchez sneaks it inside the bag at third, and he's got a double.
The Jays were held to just 2 hits in the series opener against the Red Sox last night, going on to lose the game 5-0. First pitch for tonight's game is set for just after 7 at Rogers Center. Meanwhile, Trey Yesavage will be making his season debut tonight. The 22-year-old had been on the injured list with a right shoulder impingement. Yesavage made his major league debut last season, making 3 regular season starts before becoming a key member of their playoff rotation during last year's run to the World Series.
Cloudy conditions as we head into the back half of this noon hour. You're watching CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
Looking for the perfect spot to impress on date night? Well, we're uncovering some hidden gem restaurants with cozy vibes, unforgettable dishes, and that extra little sparkle that will have you remembering this night for a long time. Brunch, lunch, or dinner, expect creative bistro dishes like French onion soup, beef tartare, steak frites, and after a meal, sneak downstairs to Sous-Sol, a hidden speakeasy serving original concoctions. French flair, cozy vibes, and a touch of mystery in every bite and sip. This week, we're stepping into history, where classic French cuisine gets a modern twist. Let's see what's on the menu. Et puis, on y va. All right, Chef John, this is a beautiful place with so much history, but what makes it the perfect venue for a date night?
I mean, you can't go wrong with this heritage mansion at Bloor and Sherbourne. Each room kind of has its own unique flair to it. The bar area, the rose room's fantastic as well. So there's a room for somebody, everyone in here.
This is how you create an elevated experience all around. Tell me a little bit about what you've put in front of me right here.
So you have the Maison Selby French onion soup and the tartare in front of you. The onion soup's fantastic. It actually takes us 3, almost 4 days sometimes to make the soup. It's very rich broth and overly caramelized onions. It's a fan favorite here on date night. and then the classic steak tartare, kind of our Southern French take on it.
Okay, I'll do my best to eat this on camera. Oh, that is so good.
And it's good for two as well.
Well, for now it's good for one. Wow, Chef, this looks absolutely incredible. Two really impressive dishes. The coq au vin. Tell me a little bit about this dish.
So this is a very traditional French dish. Red wine, braised chicken. It's a great dish, especially this time of year. You get the coq au vin and somebody else will get the steak frites. This is why people love coming to Maison Selby, especially for date night. There's something on the menu for everyone, which is fantastic.
Now I just need to find a date.
I'll join you anytime.
Okay. This is really wonderful. Thank you. Can't wait to finish this and go away. Well, there you are. Been saving you a seat. Have a seat. And cheers to you. Fall in love with Toronto's cozy candlelit spots. This gem is perfect for weekend date nights. Full details at cp24.com.
Thousands of Ontarians are currently without a family doctor, a problem the province is hoping to solve by expanding local health care teams.
CTV's Alexandra Hollick has more on how that expansion is taking shape in Kitchener-Waterloo.
For many people in Waterloo Region, family physicians are few and far between.
The latest data we have suggests almost 80,000 people without access to a primary care provider.
It's more than 10% of the region's population and a small portion of millions across Ontario. The province says it plans to close the gap by expanding local healthcare teams with $6 million of new funding.
It's going to connect almost 20,000 people, 17,444 people to primary care across our region.
The money is coming through the province's Primary Care Action Plan, which is meant to support urban and rural communities in need of care.
This funding is an awesome start to help us chip away at that big number of folks without access, but this is an amazing start.
This funding opens doors to stronger primary care teams, expanded services, and more equitable access for marginalized populations who have historically faced barriers to care.
The funding comes after an initial investment of $4.1 million into Waterloo Region healthcare teams last year, all part of a multi-billion-dollar effort to connect everyone in Ontario with a primary care provider by 2029.
We're really seeing real momentum from the government on primary care.
Dr. Joe Benverghese is the president of the Ontario College of Family Physicians. He says the college welcomes the province's plan, but stresses the need for sustainability.
The focus is to make sure that these investments will actually reduce burden and help family doctors take on more patients.
Verghese also says the province must work on attracting and retaining family doctors, while local care teams say there's more they can do, too.
Not only do we have some work to do with attachment, we also have some work to do with ensuring that people know how to access Healthcare Connect and have that wonderful support as they get connected out into our communities.
Alexandra Hollick, CTV News, Kitchener.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, the deadline to file your income taxes is quickly approaching. We'll have what you need to know when we return.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
The clock is ticking for people to file their income tax returns. The deadline is April 30th, while self-employed Canadians have until June 15th to file. Tax experts say while the deadline might feel daunting, missing it altogether can be costly. They also say filing on time and using free CRA-approved software can help maximize your chance at the best return. People are also being reminded to add in specific deductions like RRSPs, and those with multiple jobs need to include T4s for all of them.
Meanwhile, the deadline for residential property owners in Toronto to submit their 2025 vacant home tax declaration is also April 30th. You can do it online. The city says the goal of the program is to increase the supply of housing by encouraging owners of vacant residential properties to sell or rent them. All homeowners must make their declaration to avoid a 3% tax levy based on the assessed value and a $250 fine.
New data suggests the GTHA is becoming a renter's market. Data from Urban Nation shows in the first quarter of 2026, net rentals were down 3.8% year over year. Vacancy rates in the local rental market were up to 5.4%, which is the highest vacancy rate since 2021. Availability of rental units is also up to a record 8%. This has some landlords offering more incentives to renters, with Urban Nation saying 2 months of free rent is the most common offer. In Quebec, a new law on tipping took effect last year, but it appears many bars and restaurants are ignoring it.
Now, more than 500 establishments are facing complaints. CTV's Christine Long explains.
The rule came into effect after post-pandemic tip culture spiked.
People were sick of being asked for tips and more tips, and so that's why the new regulation took place.
There's already like the taxes, but then there's service fees, delivery fees, and then tip.
When it's in a restaurant, I'm like, okay, well, it's normal, but yeah, for takeout, no.
As of February, Quebec's Consumer Protection Office has received 531 complaints about merchants charging tips on the total after taxes. That's against the rules, says Charles U.S.
Forbids merchant to enhance one form or one percentage instead of the other. They should be presented neutrally, so don't feel obliged to give a better tip.
He says 200 notifications were sent out to non-compliant businesses. Some blamed their electronic payment providers who were slow to update their systems.
Regulation was announced long before it took force, but it's what we've been told also, that it takes time to adapt.
If a merchant who has received a warning is the subject of more complaints, a fine can be issued. Some clients we spoke to said they don't check if the tip is calculated, including the tax.
I do not check.
Oh, I didn't check at all. I don't really know.
Others said keep a keen eye on the total before you tap.
You try to check if you understand how the numbers are adding up.
Sometimes I find they put a little bit, like a few cents that are not supposed to be there, so it's really important to check it out.
Tanguay says, buyer beware.
Tipping have to be volunteer, and if you're not satisfied, you don't be shy, and you can give less tip or no tips at all.
My barbers get tipped pretty well.
If you work in service, you have to tip. Tipping is about karma.
Christine Long, CTV News.
Coming up, saving a moose from a scary situation. We'll have more on a uniquely Canadian rescue on the prairies when we come back. A towing company in rural Saskatchewan is getting a lot of attention after rescuing a moose from a frozen lake.
CTV's Allison Bamford has more on how they were able to secure the massive mammal.
In the last 12 years, there's not much Clint Gottinger hasn't seen as a tow truck driver.
There's a lot of things that go, how?
His most recent rescue is less of a head scratcher, but still something he won't forget.
I'm just chuckling. That's not my first water rescue, but first moose rescue.
A young moose stuck and stranded. It had fallen through the ice along a ditch in east central Saskatchewan. Gottinger spotted the animal over the weekend on his way to another call.
I can't see him suffer. I just couldn't see an animal suffer. I thought, I got to get him out. He just sat there patiently and put the sling around his butt and popped them right out. So meanwhile, while I'm doing the moose rescue, I've got customers calling, where are you?
He was already late, so he towed the moose back to his farm, where it stayed to rest and dry off before it carried on the next day. It's not the first moose rescue on the prairies this month. Just last week, this group pulled one out of the water in Manitoba, and wildlife rescues say they receive calls every year about animals on the ice.
It's a large, scared mammal that's wild, and you could very easily get injured. So my best advice would be call us. We can make the call for you, or call conservation officers.
Gottinger just happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right equipment to help out.
He didn't have no roadside assistance or cash, so.
A friendly encounter he and the moose are surely grateful to have had. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
What do you think?
It was a great deed, and I'm glad everything worked out for the moose.
Yeah, luckily we don't have snow like they do there.
We don't have ice over Lake Ontario either, but we do have midges. Perhaps you can see on this live shot right now. We'll take a closer look. Yeah, there's a whole lot of bugs flying around that camera, and today's rain certainly helping them thrive. These midges are very common in the spring season. Anybody living down by the water knows exactly what I'm talking about, but they only stick around for a couple of weeks. Very important to Lake Ontario's ecosystem as well. We're hanging on to the chance of showers for the rest of this afternoon and evening, but it will be drier. There's tomorrow morning, not as wet for the AM commute, but a little rain is expected later on. And one more look at your 7-day forecast shows a chilly first weekend of May. Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. And that's it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6.